Welcome into another episode of Donovan and Dino. I am not Dino, though. I am Ben Axelrod joining you following the Cleveland Browns 41-35 victory over the Tennessee Titans. And you are not here for me, though. You are here for the voice of the Browns, Jim Donovan. And Jim, another great Cleveland Browns victory. And it feels weird to say that here in December, but here we are, the Cleveland Browns at 9-3. Playoff berth, I think, virtually locked up here heading into the final 4 weeks of the regular season. And I guess let's start with yesterday's game. What was your big takeaway from the win over the Titans?
Just a great win, Ben. Really was. I know a lot of people going into the game were saying things like, great year, but who have they beaten yet? And, that was a valid question. But you can only play the people who are on your schedule. But they had those bad losses and lopsided losses to Baltimore and Pittsburgh and a tough one against the Raiders. But then they kind of beat everybody they were supposed to beat. So this was the measure of could they get over the bar and beat a really good team in a really big game for both teams. And they walked into Tennessee and they really took it to the Titans. I think the first thing that hits me, Ben, I think it's one of the most brilliant game plans that I have seen the Browns come up with. And I have to put that, in the category of Kevin Stefanski and his coaching staff, because I think everybody in the world who took a look and previewed this game said Derrick Henry on one side for Tennessee, they're going to run the ball. They always do, and they should. And with Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt on the Browns side, they're going to run the ball, and they really should. And the Browns came out and threw the ball. And I really think it threw Tennessee for a loop. And it ended up with a huge first half. 38 points in the first half and totally unstoppable. I think that's the sign of a team that came in with a great plan. And it was a great plan that was executed perfectly in the first half. And that got them by. It really did. Second half, different story. We can talk about that. But, boy, I can't remember when a Browns team has come in and tactically taken a team apart the way they did yesterday.
Yeah, you look at that first half and, with the offensive firepower that Tennessee has with Derrick Henry and A.J. Brown and Corey Davis and Ryan Tannehill playing the way he's played, you looked at that first quarter and the Browns come down, get the field goal. They miss an opportunity for a touchdown, get the stop of Derrick Henry on fourth down, and are able to convert that drive into a touchdown. And you looked at it and you said, this quarter really couldn't have gone any better. The Browns were able to take a 10-0 lead while really keeping the ball out of the Titans' hands. And that was before Derrick Henry fumbles the ball and the Browns are able to go up 17-0 and, really just keep their foot on the gas. I'm with you. Not only, it seemed like, maybe early on they were going to, they came out firing, but they also wanted to play smart, play some ball control. But they were able to get that double-digit lead. Really, the rest of the first half, they just kept their foot on the gas there.
Yeah, I guess the thing maybe that we missed, and I missed it going into the game, was Tennessee really doesn't have a pass rush. They really don't. They only had 14 sacks coming into the game. And the Browns have faced good pass rushes. Say what you want. Philadelphia's had a terrible year, but they do have a good front. The Texans the same way, especially when J.J. Watt is healthy and Zach Ham's running around. They have a great pass rush. The Raiders can get to the quarterback. Even Jacksonville has a couple of people that can get to the quarterback, but Tennessee doesn't get to the quarterback. And they've tried in acquisitions, Jadeveon Clowney, Vic Beasley. Neither one of those moves has worked out for them. So, it was there that probably, you can't look past that and say, well, you know what, we can throw the ball on them. But it just seemed to me to be that you wanted to play keep away. And keep away might be the way to go going into this game. And by that, you just keep the ball away from the Titans. And by doing that, you grind the game out with the running game and keep Derrick Henry over on the sideline. But there was another way to do it, obviously, and that was to throw the ball, get ahead in the game. And that's another way to take Derrick Henry out of the game. Because once the game becomes a 3-game score to get back into the game, he becomes obsolete because they need points. They have to get down the field in a hurry, whereas he's terrific, but he's going to do it in 5 or 6 yard chunks. And so that was another way to do it. And, I completely missed it over my head going into the game. I saw the number 14 sacks, but I just thought that with Chubb and Hunt, it was going to be a running day for them.
I watched yesterday's game and I couldn't help but think about last year's season opener against the Tennessee Titans. And, that really felt like Mike Vrabel's, signature moment, or maybe not a signature, but a rival moment as a head coach where, I think his team came into that game a 6 or 7 point underdog, and this coach circles around the Browns, and we saw what the result was. Look at this game, and the final score isn't as lopsided as that game was, but I think anybody who watched yesterday, the full 60 minutes, knows that final score was not necessarily indicative of how that game went. We've seen all year what Kevin Stefanski has been able to do, I think, both as a leader and both as a tactician. But yesterday really felt like kind of an arrival moment where I haven't seen any betting odds for it, but I'd imagine he's up there in terms of Coach of the Year rankings now. And I don't know, it just feels like yesterday's game, I should say, really has changed the way people are talking about both Kevin Stefanski and maybe the Browns' upside for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I think so. And I think it's that kind of prove it win. Now, whenever it comes during a season, you take it, obviously. And if it comes like it did for Tennessee at the beginning of the year last year, and I agree with you, I thought Vrabel did an amazing job preparing his team for what that atmosphere was going to be like at First Energy Stadium with the high expectations of the Browns and OBJ coming out and, Mayfield coming into his second year. Really, it was really, the odds were stacked against them just in atmosphere. And he coached his team through that. And then they went on, of course, and totally dominated the game. And they really outcoached the Browns in that game too, and certainly out-executed them, and by 30 points outscored them. But I think you're right. I think a lot of people have taken notice of Kevin Stefanski. He's not a guy that puts himself out there a great deal. He doesn't even take a lot of bows after a victory. In fact, it's hard pressed to get him to give himself a compliment. He always feels that he's got something to do better. I got to call a better game. I have to call a better play. We have to do better on the goal line when we're a yard out and be able to get that yard. So I think that, that he has arrived. There's no doubt about it. I think he's assembled a terrific staff. And the other thing, Ben, is I think he lets that coaching staff coach. And I think that's a big thing. I really do. I think some guys get in there and they're doing everything. And I think we were all a little bit maybe concerned that he was going to take on too much when he was going to take on the head coaching responsibilities, and he was going to call his own plays too. But I really think Alex Van Pelt is very, very involved as the offensive coordinator. I think Bill Callahan is very, very involved as the offensive line coach. I think that Chad O'Shea is very involved. Stump Mitchell. You go right down the line. And over on the defensive side, I really think he allows Joe Woods to do his thing. So they've got a lot of good things going. They really do. And he's done an amazing job coming into this situation in his first year, and what he's been able to do with wins and with culture. And probably you put culture in front of the wins. And you're right. He definitely receives a lot of consideration for that. But I bet that's heightened after the win yesterday.
One thing that's struck me about him, following his press conferences week in and week out, is his demeanor was the same after they lost in week 1, 38-6 to the Ravens, as it was yesterday after they beat the Titans to clinch a winning season for the Browns for the first time since 2007. And I think you see that, really extend itself out onto the field. I think about Donovan Peoples-Jones dropping a surefire touchdown on the opening drive and then bouncing back and catching a 75-yard touchdown. I think where we've really seen it is with Baker Mayfield, and where Baker got off to, I think at times, a rocky start this season. We've really seen him bounce back here and put. I know it's been weird with some of the weather games, but for about a month now, we've seen him put together, some efficient performances, and certainly yesterday in that first half, 4 touchdowns, the first Browns quarterback to do that in the first half since Otto Graham in 1951. I thought yesterday was kind of, I think a lot of this season has been letting Baker Mayfield walk before he can run.
Yeah.
Yesterday, we started to see Baker Mayfield run a little bit.
Yeah, you're right. His work with him, I think he realized when he got the job, was probably going to be his most important task. And I think that's why he traveled to Texas, before the COVID situation really arose to a head, and went down there and visited with his quarterback, because he really had to achieve some kind of a working relationship with him. And first of all, he had to get to know him. And he had to probably, I think, sell him on what was going to be different in how he wanted him to play at quarterback, because there are days where Mayfield doesn't have to throw for a ton of yardage and a lot of touchdown passes, where they can run the football, or he can throw very, very sparsely for 20, 21 attempts in the day, and they can get out of there and they can win, and it can be a very, very solid win, but not a big statistical win at the quarterback position. And I think that Mayfield has always thought, even when he was in college and he played in these programs that just went up and down the field and scored at Texas Tech and Oklahoma, that you have to do that all the time, and you really don't. And certainly it was proven that there are times that you can't do that because of those 3 weekends where we had that horrible weather that blew through First Energy Stadium. But you're right, when all of a sudden he lets him go, and he did it in Jacksonville, but he certainly did it yesterday, at least in the first half of the game. Mayfield, I think, realizes the interceptions are bad. I don't want to do it. I have to be careful with it. I'm rewarded if I am careful with the football because I'm allowed to throw the football a little bit more. And I think that that's the way it's gone. I think he has turned Mayfield into a more complete quarterback that has to take a look at every game situation a little differently. I don't have to play the same way, really kind of go rogue or be, a gunslinger out there. I can just be a game manager a couple of times and let Chubb and Hunt win the game for us and let the defense try and win the ball game for us. So it's a conversion in the way I think Mayfield has had to think. And it's a big conversion, Ben, because of where he played in college at both stops and then how he came in to the NFL, and both Hugh Jackson for the short amount of time he had him, and then certainly Freddie Kitchens from when he had him. They really just kind of let him go and throw the ball all over the place.
Is that second half any cause for concern for you?
Yeah. I have to tell you, Ben, I hated it. I really did. I hated it in Dallas, and I hated it yesterday. I understand what they're trying to do in the way of thinking, but I think it's pretty early to start thinking about the clock when you come out of the locker room for the start of the second half. And I don't think it was dangerous to throw the football yesterday. I really don't. Guys were wide open. He wasn't getting sacked. I think that, he was in a good rhythm and a good mindset, that he was not in this reckless, I'm going to try and, squeeze the ball into a place. I don't think he really had to squeeze the ball in at all. So to take the passing game off the table as early as they did, which was at the end of the first half, I think it was a little bit premature. The second thing was, when they started racking up the penalties, then they were into really what happened in that first game last year against Tennessee. They were behind the chains the whole second half. I mean, they were countlessly 1st and 20, 1st and 15 because of a holding or a false start or something like that. There are enough coaching points, I think, to come out of the game, even though they dominated the game. And one of them would be, we have to find a better way to have a big, this is unusual for all of us in Cleveland to be saying, but we have to find a better way to blow a team out and keep it a blowout rather than all of a sudden lining up for onside.
Yeah,
I'd be an old-fashioned guy and say, that's going to come back and beat you. But gosh, you don't want to have that come back and beat you. That would be a nightmare. That would be a torpedo in the side of the season if that happened. So I did not like the way they played in the second half.
Yeah. There was a part of me that thought, you get a big lead, and that's the luxury of having a big lead. But then I watched the Patriots yesterday blow out the Chargers, and I think that's the next step for this Browns team is how do you just keep the foot on the gas and just keep rolling. So like you said, there's certainly better to learn in a win than it is to learn in a loss. You mentioned how the Browns are viewed, or were viewed heading into this game. They beat some bad teams. They win some weird weather games that maybe played into the way that they want to play, running the ball and being opportunistic on defense. For you, how does yesterday's win against, a legitimate first place team, a team that was playing in the AFC title game a year ago, how does that change your view of what this team can accomplish here moving forward with 4 weeks left in the regular season and presumably some at least one playoff game ahead?
Well, I mean, I was very little concerned going into December. I mean, the way it stacks up, because I looked at it this way: tough game down in Tennessee, good team, and they were coming off a big win over Indianapolis the week before. Tannehill's having the year of his career. And Derrick Henry is Derrick Henry. So I thought that was going to be tough. I looked at the Jets game as a game that they should win. And, I looked at the Giants getting better, Ben, week by week with Joe Judge in his first year, and now starting to look like a real team in a very unreal division in the NFC East for what's gone on there this year. And then I looked at the Baltimore and Pittsburgh games and said, I think we're going to be better against them. It would be hard to be worse against them, and we'll take our shots at them. But now I look at the situation, and Baltimore is certainly a different team than they were at the beginning of the year when the Browns played them in Baltimore in the opening game of the season. I mean, they're different. I think they're different physically. I think they're different mentally, too. I mean, I think there are things there that are going on that have become a problem for them. So, I mean, gosh, I look at these games right now, and with the way the Browns played yesterday, I think they go into every one of these games and say, hey, listen, if we play well, we can win the game, and in some of them, we should win the game. And I think that that's the way you approach these games now, rather than just saying, hey, we got to get one of these or hope that we can get two of these and that 10-6 would be enough to get you into the playoffs. I think they're going to surpass that. I really do. I think they're playing at a rate right now where they're winning and they're getting better. And they, this year's been kind of cool. They've won different ways in a number of the 9 wins. Yesterday was a totally different way than we've seen them win before this season. So you kind of look forward to what they're going to do every week because it's different, but it's an improvement every week. And that means that they are really focused in on the job every week. This 1-0 mantra that Kevin Stefanski has put in play every week that, hey, we just want to be 1-0 and win that game. I think that the team buys into that. I don't think they've looked past anybody. I don't know maybe if Tennessee looked past them yesterday. But I think it's working the right way for them. This is really a fun thing to watch.
Yeah, I think if you're looking for a model for what the Browns could do if they were to reach their ceiling, I don't think you have to look any further than what that Titans team did last year. That was the team that ran the ball well in the winter and on the road. That was a team that got a quarterback who was hot at the right time. And like you said, a team that improved week over week. So, right now, that Titans team, I think, was 9-7 heading into the playoffs. Right now, the Browns are guaranteed to be at least that. So we'll see. Last thing, and then I'll get you out of here. You called a lot of losing football from 2008 to 2019. You are guaranteed to be calling a winning season here for the Cleveland Browns in 2020. How does that feel? What does that mean to you?
Oh, it's been great. It really has. This is a great story, I think. Unfortunately, it's missing something, and it's missing the fans. Mm-hmm. It's missing and I know they're there, but I mean, they're not there in person. As I drive down to the stadium on a day that they're going to play at home and we're allowed in to call the game at First Energy Stadium, I look at that Muni lot and it's empty. And I just say to myself, wow, what would that be like on a Monday night with them being 9-3 and taking on a team like the Ravens, an arch rival in the division? What would the whole day be like on Monday? It would be unbelievable. It would be people saying, hey, listen, I'm only going to work a half day, or I'm not going to work at all. And I'm going to have such a great time on Monday. Because I do remember back in the 80s when they with Marty and Bernie and Mackenbiner and all those greats, Ozzie, when they were playing in big games, I mean, the city was just amazing all week long. People didn't mind going to work because it was so much fun getting ready for the game coming up on that Sunday afternoon. So calling the games this year has been great. Watching a young coach come in here. I have to tell you, Ben, when he got hired, I mean, there wasn't a lot of excitement. He wasn't a big name. He wasn't a hot coordinator. He had really only been a coordinator for last season. And you got to remember, Gary Kubiak was side by side with him in Minnesota, alongside as a strong offensive consultant. So there wasn't a lot of hoopla. I mean, we had heard that he was a strong candidate from the year before when Freddie got hired, but then they went back to him. And I don't know, everybody was just kind of like, and remember now, he's coming off a loss the day before he's named as the head coach of the Browns. The Vikings had been blown out in San Francisco in the playoff game. And to meet him and watch him just take on an amazing experience that became even more amazing because of COVID hitting and a virtual offseason. I have to tell you, I think this is one of the all-time great stories, I think, in Browns coaching history, which has had a lot of bad chapters in it because of guys being here for 1 year and they're gone. So to call these games and watch this guy put together a very organized thinking man's football team is a real joy. And I hope it continues. I really do. But I do miss, everybody being able to put their arms around it and not be able to experience it up close and personal.
Absolutely. I couldn't have said it better myself. So we're going to end on that here. He's Jim Donovan, the voice of the Browns. I am Ben Axelrod. That's going to do it for this week's Donovan and Dino. Thanks for watching on WKYC.com.